Single mom was spending Christmas Eve with her son until her millionaire boss visited unexpectedly. The knock came at 7:30 on Christmas Eve, just as Riley James was hanging the last strand of dollar store lights around her tiny studio apartment. Her hands froze mid-reach. Nobody knocked on her door, ever. She didn't have friends who visited, family who checked in, or neighbors who cared enough to stop by. When she opened the door, her millionaire boss stood there holding a basket overflowing with food, gifts, and a small Christmas tree that twinkled with white lights. Riley's breath caught. "Sir, what are you doing here?" Grant Weston smiled, not the polite professional smile he wore at the office, but something warmer, more genuine. "Riley, no one should spend Christmas Eve alone, especially not you and this little guy." He gestured toward 8-month-old Noah, who sat on a blanket near the floor mattress they shared, his wide eyes fixed on the glowing tree in the stranger's arms. Riley stood frozen in the doorway of her shabby apartment, acutely aware of the peeling paint, the hot plate on the counter that served as her stove, the single window with its view of the alley. This man lived in a penthouse downtown. He drove cars that cost more than she'd earn in 5 years, and he was standing at her door on Christmas Eve with gifts she couldn't begin to repay. "I don't understand," she whispered, tears already forming. "Why would you—" "Because I noticed," Grant said simply, "and because you deserve a Christmas that feels like hope." But to understand why Grant Weston drove across town on Christmas Eve instead of attending the exclusive holiday party where everyone expected him, you have to go back 12 hours earlier, back to when Riley woke up in the cold darkness of December 24th, already exhausted before the day had even begun. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. Wherever you're watching from, whether it's your warm living room, your lunch break at work, or late at night when you can't sleep, drop a comment and tell me where you are and what time it is. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The stories we share aren't just entertainment. They're reminders that we all struggle, we all need to be seen, and sometimes one person's kindness changes everything. Now, let me take you back to where Riley's day really started. Riley's alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning, the sound piercing through the thin walls of the studio apartment like a knife. She slapped it off immediately, heart pounding, praying Noah wouldn't wake. The baby stirred in his sleep beside her on the floor mattress, but didn't cry. Small mercy. She lay there for 30 seconds, staring at the ceiling where a water stain had been slowly spreading for 3 months. The landlord kept promising to fix it. Riley had stopped asking. She was just grateful he hadn't raised the rent yet. Every muscle in her body ached. She'd worked a double shift yesterday, 8 hours at Western Technologies as an administrative assistant, then 6 more hours cleaning offices downtown. She'd gotten home at midnight, fed Noah, and collapsed into sleep still wearing her clothes. Now it was Christmas Eve, and she had exactly 1 day off before the cycle started again. Riley forced herself upright, her joints protesting. At 26, she felt 40. The apartment was freezing, the ancient radiator clanked and hissed, but produced more noise than heat. She pulled on a sweatshirt over her clothes from yesterday and checked her phone. Bank balance, $47.23. Rent due in 1 week, $650. She'd get her paycheck from Western Technologies on the 26th, and the cleaning company paid weekly, but even combined, she'd be short. Again. She'd have to ask for an advance. Again. The shame of it burned in her chest, but what choice did she have? Noah made a small sound, and Riley's entire focus shifted. She moved to him immediately, lifting his warm body into her arms. "Good morning, baby boy," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Merry Christmas Eve." He blinked up at her with those huge brown eyes, his father's eyes, though Riley tried not to think about that and made a gurgling sound that might have been a laugh. She changed his diaper on the floor, counting the remaining diapers in the pack. 4 left. She'd have to buy more tomorrow, which meant cutting something else from the budget. Maybe she could skip lunch this week. She'd done it before. Riley prepared a bottle with the last of the formula, doing the math in her head. She had 1 more can in the cabinet. That would get them through the holiday, but she'd need to buy more by Friday. Formula was expensive, criminally expensive, and Noah was eating more as he grew. While he drank his bottle, Riley moved to the corner that served as her kitchen. Hot plate, mini fridge, a handful of mismatched dishes. She opened the fridge. 1 egg, half a loaf of bread, a container of yogurt past its expiration date, and a jar of peanut butter. She made herself a piece of toast and ate it standing up, washing it down with tap water. Coffee would have been nice, but she'd run out 3 days ago and couldn't afford more until payday. On the counter sat a stack of bills she'd been avoiding. Electric bill past due, phone bill final notice, medical bills from Noah's last checkup, each one stamped with increasingly aggressive reminders. She shoved them into a drawer. Not today. She couldn't deal with that today. By 5:30, she had Noah dressed in his warmest outfit, a onesie that was getting too small but would have to last another month, and bundled in the blanket her mother had sent before they'd stopped speaking. Riley didn't like to think about her family, about the way they'd looked at her when she'd gotten pregnant at 24, unmarried, by a man they'd never approved of. "You made your choice," her father had said. "Now live with it." So she did. Without their help, without Noah's father, without anyone. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. Riley walked quickly through the dark morning, Noah strapped to her chest in a second-hand carrier, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. She wore the only winter coat she owned, a thin thing with a broken zipper she'd safety-pinned closed. The bus came 15 minutes late. Riley stood the entire ride, swaying with Noah, watching the city wake up through dirty windows. Wealthy neighborhoods gave way to working-class areas, which gave way to downtown, where the glass towers reflected the rising sun. Western Technologies occupied 15 floors of one of those towers. Riley had worked there for 8 months, ever since Noah was born, and she desperately needed income with health insurance. The job was fine, more than fine, actually. The pay was decent by her standards, the benefits were good, and her boss, Grant Weston, was kinder than most executives she'd encountered. But the commute was brutal, the hours were long, and childcare ate up nearly half her paycheck. She dropped Noah off at Little Learner's daycare at 6:45, kissing his forehead 3 times before handing him to Miss Janet, the morning attendant. "Merry Christmas Eve, Riley," Janet said warmly. "You working today?" "Just until 2, Riley said. "Half day for the holiday." "That's good. You deserve a break," Janet bounced Noah gently. "This little man is getting so big." "I know." Riley's throat tightened. She was missing so much first smiles, first attempts at crawling, all the tiny moments that made up a childhood. But there was no other option. She had to work. They had to eat. "Pick up by 6, okay?" Janet reminded her gently. "After that it's $10 every 15 minutes. Riley nodded. She'd never been late. Couldn't afford to be. By 7:15, she was at her desk on the 12th floor of Western Technologies, logging into her computer, checking her boss's schedule, responding to emails that had come in overnight. The office was quiet this early. Most people wouldn't arrive until 8 or 9, and with it being Christmas Eve, the place would be half empty all day. Riley preferred the quiet. It let her work without feeling watched, without worrying that someone would notice how tired she was or how worn her shoes had become. She'd mended them herself last week with superglue and thread, but you could still see the repair if you looked closely. Riley tried not to think about it. At 8:30, Grant Weston arrived. Riley heard his footsteps, first confident, purposeful, then saw him round the corner toward his office. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that was just starting to gray at the temples. 38 years old, according to the company bio. Self-made millionaire who'd built Western Technologies from nothing into one of the most successful software companies on the East Coast. He could have been intimidating, should have been, probably. But every interaction Riley had with him left her feeling seen. Not in an uncomfortable way, but in a way that made her feel like she mattered, even as the assistant who scheduled his meetings and organized his files. "Good morning, Riley," Grant said, pausing at her desk. "You're here early." "Good morning, Mr. Weston. Just wanted to get ahead on a few things before the holiday." He studied her for a moment, and Riley resisted the urge to look away. His eyes were kind gray-blue, sharp, but not cold. "You're always here early," he observed. "Do you ever sleep?" Riley forced a smile. Sleep is overrated. I don't think it is. His expression shifted, something almost concerned crossing his features. Are you doing all right, Riley? The question caught her off guard. Most people asked how you were as a formality. They didn't actually want to know. I'm fine, she said automatically. Just busy. You know how it is. Grant nodded slowly, but something in his eyes suggested he didn't quite believe her. If you ever need anything time off, schedule adjustments, whatever, just let me know. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. He lingered for another moment, then continued into his office. Riley exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her desk until they stilled. The morning passed in a blur of tasks. Riley confirmed Grant's afternoon meetings, responded to client inquiries, organized files for the quarterly review in January. She worked through her lunch break, eating the sleeve of crackers she'd brought from home, washing them down with water from the fountain. At noon, Beth from accounting stopped by her desk. Beth was in her 40s, warm and maternal in a way that made Riley's chest ache sometimes. Riley, honey, are you coming to the holiday party tonight? The party. Riley had almost forgotten. Every year, Western Technologies threw an elaborate Christmas Eve celebration at a downtown hotel. Dinner, dancing, open bar, gifts for employees. It was the kind of event Riley had only seen in movies. I can't, Riley said, keeping her voice light. I need to get home to Noah. Bring him, Beth suggested. Everyone would love to meet him. Riley shook her head. It's past his bedtime. And honestly, I'm just exhausted. I think we're going to have a quiet night at home. The truth was more complicated. She couldn't afford the transportation to the hotel and back. She didn't have anything appropriate to wear. Her one nice dress had a stain she couldn't get out, and she certainly couldn't afford to buy something new. And the thought of showing up alone, without a partner, watching everyone else with their families, it hurt too much. Well, if you change your mind, the invitation stands, Beth said kindly. You work so hard, Riley. You deserve to celebrate. After Beth left, Riley sat very still, fighting the pressure behind her eyes. She would not cry at work. She would not. At 1 o'clock, Grant emerged from his office with his coat and briefcase. Riley, I'm heading out early. The office is closing at 2 anyway. You should go home, spend time with your son. Are you going to the party tonight? Riley asked. Something flickered across Grant's face. Probably. My assistant already RSVP'd. I hope you have a wonderful time, Mr. Weston. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Riley. He paused at her desk again, that same searching look in his eyes. Do you have plans tonight? Anything special? Just time with Noah, Riley said, smiling despite the heaviness in her chest. That's all I need. Grant nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. He's lucky to have you. The words landed softly, unexpectedly. Riley's throat closed up. Thank you, she managed. After Grant left, Riley finished her work, shut down her computer, and gathered her things. The office emptied quickly, everyone eager to start their holiday. By 1:45, she was alone on the 12th floor. She stood at the window for a moment, looking down at the city below. People rushing home with shopping bags, families bundled together, the world preparing for Christmas, while Riley prepared for another night of making something from nothing. But she had Noah. That was everything. She took the bus to the daycare, arriving at 2:30. Noah lit up when he saw her, his whole face transforming into joy, and Riley felt her heart crack open the way it always did when he smiled at her. We made handprint ornaments today, Miss Janet said, handing Riley a piece of paper with Noah's tiny handprint in red paint. For your tree. Riley accepted it carefully, blinking back tears. Thank you. It's perfect. You okay, honey? Janet asked gently. Just tired, Riley said. Long week. Well, you enjoy your Christmas with that sweet boy. You both deserve it. On the bus ride home, Riley calculated her remaining money. $47. She needed to make Christmas special somehow. Noah wouldn't remember it, he was too young, but she would. She wanted to remember giving him something, making the day feel different than all the other hard days. She got off the bus 2 stops early and walked to the dollar store. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and a tinny recording of Christmas carols played from hidden speakers. Riley moved through the aisles quickly, Noah heavy in the carrier against her chest. A string of lights, $3. A can of soup, $1. A candy cane for decoration, 50 cents. She found a small stuffed teddy bear on the clearance shelf, $5. It was second-hand, slightly worn, but clean and soft. At the register, the total came to $9.50. The cashier, a teenager who looked bored beyond measure, barely glanced at her. Riley walked the remaining blocks home as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful, even in this neighborhood where the buildings were crumbling and the streets were cracked. Inside her apartment, Riley set Noah on the blanket she'd spread on the floor and got to work. She hung the string of lights around the small space, tacking them to the walls with pieces of tape. The effect was modest but warm, tiny white bulbs casting soft light across the room. She placed the teddy bear near the mattress where Noah would see it in the morning. It wasn't much, but it was something. By 6 o'clock, Riley had heated the soup on the hot plate and fed Noah his dinner of mashed banana and rice cereal. He ate eagerly, smearing food across his face, and Riley cleaned him up with a damp cloth, laughing despite her exhaustion. "It's Christmas Eve, baby boy," she told him, settling onto the floor with him in her lap. "I know it doesn't look like much, but I promise you're loved. I promise you matter. And someday, I'm going to give you everything you deserve." Noah grabbed at her finger, his grip surprisingly strong, and made a happy sound. Riley held him close, breathing in his baby smell, feeling the weight of him against her chest. This was enough. It had to be enough. Around 7, she changed him into his pajamas and laid him on the mattress for bed. He fought sleep for a while, fussing and squirming, but eventually his eyes closed and his breathing evened out. Riley sat beside him, watching him sleep, and allowed herself a moment of quiet grief. She was 26 years old. She'd had dreams, once college, a career, a family built on love and stability. Instead, she had a GED, 2 jobs that barely covered expenses, and a studio apartment where she and her baby slept on the floor. Noah's father had promised to stay, had said he loved her, wanted to build a life together. But when the pregnancy test came back positive, he'd looked at her with something like panic and said, "I can't do this." He'd left before Noah was born. No calls, no support, nothing. Riley's family had offered to help if she gave Noah up for adoption. "You're too young," her mother had said. "You can't do this alone." But Riley couldn't imagine giving him away. Couldn't imagine a world where she wasn't his mother. So she'd done it alone, and she'd keep doing it alone, for as long as it took. A single tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. No crying. Crying didn't change anything. She stood and moved to the hot plate, heating water for tea. She had 1 bag left, saved for a moment when she needed comfort. Tonight qualified. While the water heated, Riley looked around her apartment. The dollar store lights glowed softly. The teddy bear sat waiting for Christmas morning. The radiator clanked its familiar rhythm. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. And that's when the knock came. Riley's head snapped toward the door. Her heart kicked into overdrive. Nobody knocked on her door. Ever. She moved cautiously, checking the peephole. Grant Weston stood in the hallway, holding an enormous basket. Riley's mind went blank. Her boss, at her apartment, on Christmas Eve. She opened the door, shock rendering her speechless. "Sir, what are you doing here?" Grant's expression was gentle, almost apologetic. "Riley, no one should spend Christmas Eve alone, especially not you and this little guy." He gestured toward Noah, and that's when Riley noticed what was in the basket. Food, real food. A turkey, vegetables, bread, baby formula, diapers, warm clothes, toys, and balanced on top, a small Christmas tree with twinkling lights. "I don't," Riley's voice broke. "I don't understand. Can I come in?" Grant asked softly. Riley nodded, stepping back, suddenly acutely aware of how small and shabby her apartment was. But Grant entered without judgment, his eyes taking in the space with something that looked like understanding rather than pity. He set the basket on the small counter and began unpacking it. "You don't have to do this," Riley said, tears streaming down her face now. You're my boss. This is too much. I can't. Riley. Grant stopped and turned to face her fully. I've been watching you for months. Watching you arrive early and stay late. Watching you skip lunch and wear shoes that are falling apart because you can't afford new ones. Watching you give everything to your job and your son and leave nothing for yourself. Riley's breath caught. I grew up with a single mother, Grant continued, his voice quiet but firm. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I watched her sacrifice everything, her health, her dreams, her happiness so I could have a chance. And nobody helped her. Nobody saw her. Nobody showed up. He gestured to the basket. So I'm showing up. For you. Because you work harder than anyone in that building. Because you deserve a Christmas that doesn't feel like survival. And because... He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. Because I didn't want to spend tonight pretending to enjoy a party when I knew you were here alone, trying to make something special out of nothing. Riley couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The tears came harder now, and she didn't try to stop them. Grant pulled out the small Christmas tree and set it on the floor near the mattress. It lit up immediately, casting warm light across the room, so much brighter than the dollar store strand. Noah stirred in his sleep, his face turning toward the light. May I? Grant asked, gesturing toward the baby. Riley nodded. Grant knelt beside Noah, looking at him with something tender in his expression. Hi there, little man. Merry Christmas. Noah blinked awake, staring at Grant with curious eyes. Then, impossibly, he smiled. Grant laughed a genuine surprise sound. He's beautiful, Riley. He's everything, Riley whispered. Grant stood and began unpacking the rest of the basket. Fresh turkey, already cooked, vegetables, rolls, cranberry sauce, baby formula, the expensive kind Riley could never afford, diapers, a soft blue blanket, warm pajamas in Noah's size, a toy truck with lights and sounds. How did you know his size? Riley asked through her tears. I asked Janet at the daycare, Grant admitted. I hope that's okay. Riley let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. You planned this. You didn't just decide tonight. I've been thinking about it since last week, Grant said. Since I saw you turn down the party invitation. I saw your face, Riley. I saw how much you wanted to go and how much you couldn't, and I thought, nobody should feel that alone. Not on Christmas. He finished unpacking and turned to her. I know this is unusual. I know it crosses some professional boundaries, but some things are more important than boundaries. And making sure you and Noah have a real Christmas, that felt important. Riley wiped her face with shaking hands. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Why? Riley asked, her voice breaking on the word. Why would you do all this for us? Grant was quiet for a moment. Then, because you gave me your breakfast. Riley frowned, confused. What? 3 weeks ago, I came in early and saw you eating crackers at your desk. Beth brought donuts for the office, and I watched you take one. But then, you wrapped it in a napkin and put it in your bag. Later, I saw you give it to the woman who cleans our floor. You gave away your food, Riley, just like I'm guessing you've given away a lot of things for your son. He stepped closer, his expression earnest. You give when you have nothing. You work when you're exhausted. You smile when you're struggling. That kind of strength deserves to be honored. So consider this my small attempt at honoring it. Riley couldn't hold it together anymore. She sat down on the floor and cried, really cried, for the first time in months. All the exhaustion, the fear, the loneliness, the constant weight of barely surviving came pouring out. And Grant Weston, Millionaire CEO, sat down on the floor beside her and didn't say anything, just sat with her while she fell apart, his presence steady and unjudging. When Riley finally caught her breath, she looked at him through swollen eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. You're allowed to feel what you feel. Noah made a sound, drawing their attention. He'd pulled himself to sitting a new skill and was reaching toward the glowing tree with fascinated hands. Riley moved to him instinctively, and Grant watched them together. Would you stay? Riley heard herself ask. For dinner. I know you probably have somewhere else to be, but I'd love to stay, Grant said immediately. If you're sure. I'm sure. So on Christmas Eve, in a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and a leaky radiator, Riley James and Grant Weston prepared dinner together. Grant insisted on doing most of the work, navigating the cramped space with surprising ease. Riley fed Noah while watching this man, her boss, a millionaire, someone who lived in a completely different world, move around her kitchen like it was the most natural thing in the world. They ate sitting on the floor because there was only one chair and neither would take it. The turkey was perfect. The vegetables were seasoned just right. For the first time in longer than Riley could remember, she ate until she was full. Noah played on his blanket, fascinated by the new toy truck, making happy sounds that filled the small space with joy. And Grant told her about his mother, about growing up poor, watching her work herself to exhaustion, about the Christmases where they'd had nothing but each other, about how he'd built his company with her in mind, wanting to create something that would have made her proud. She passed away 5 years ago, Grant said quietly, right before the company really took off. She never got to see what it became. I'm sorry, Riley said. Me too, he smiled sadly. But she taught me to notice people, to see the ones working in the background, giving everything they have. That's why I noticed you, Riley, because you reminded me of her. The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. After dinner, Grant helped Riley clean up. Then he stood to leave, and Riley felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. The evening had been the most peace she'd felt in months. Thank you, she said at the door, for everything. I don't know how to repay you. You don't repay kindness, Grant said. You just accept it. And maybe someday, you pass it forward. He looked back at Noah, who'd fallen asleep on the blanket, clutching the new teddy bear. He's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. Grant's eyes met hers, and something passed between them, understanding, connection, the recognition of two people who'd both known struggle and loneliness. Merry Christmas, Riley. Merry Christmas, Mr. Weston. Grant, he corrected gently. Tonight, I'm just Grant. After he left, Riley stood in her apartment, looking at the tree, the gifts, the full refrigerator. She felt like she was dreaming. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're not alone anymore. G. Riley saved the number and replied, Thank you for seeing me. The response came quickly. Thank you for being worth seeing. Riley put Noah down for the night, turned off all the lights except the Christmas tree, and lay beside her son on the floor mattress. The apartment was warm for the first time in weeks. Her stomach was full. Her heart felt lighter. And for the first time since Noah was born, Riley let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. She didn't know yet that Grant had gone home to his empty penthouse and sat awake for hours, unable to stop thinking about the woman and baby in that tiny apartment. Didn't know that he'd felt more present, more purposeful in those few hours than he had in years of success and wealth. Didn't know that everything was about to change. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, Riley James fell asleep with hope in her chest and gratitude in her heart. And that was more than enough. Riley woke on Christmas morning to sunlight streaming through the window and Noah's excited babbling. For a moment, she thought the previous night had been a dream, the kind her exhausted mind conjured to make the loneliness bearable. Then she saw the Christmas tree, still glowing softly in the corner, the teddy bear in Noah's arms, the refrigerator humming with actual food inside. It was real, all of it. She lifted Noah into her arms, kissing his cheek. Merry Christmas, baby boy. He squealed and reached toward the tree, his small hands opening and closing. Riley's phone buzzed on the floor beside the mattress, a text from the number she'd saved last night as Grant. Merry Christmas, Riley. I hope you and Noah slept well. You're not alone anymore. Riley stared at the words, her throat tight. She typed back with shaking fingers. Merry Christmas. Thank you for everything. You gave us the best Christmas we've ever had. The response came quickly. It was my honor. Enjoy your day. Riley fed Noah from the expensive formula Grant had brought, marveling at how much easier it mixed, how much Noah seemed to love it. She made herself eggs and toast, real breakfast, not crackers or nothing, and ate slowly, savoring every bite. The day passed quietly. She played with Noah on the floor, watched him discover the toy truck over and over, laughed when he tried to eat the teddy bear's ear. The apartment felt different with the tree glowing, with food in the fridge, with the warmth of knowing someone had cared enough to show up. But as evening approached, Riley felt restless. She kept checking her phone, though she didn't know what she was hoping for. Another message? An explanation of what last night meant? At 6:30, there was another knock at the door. Riley's heart jumped. She checked the peephole, and sure enough, Grant stood there again. This time he wore jeans and a sweater instead of the dress clothes from last night. He looked younger somehow, less like a CEO, and more like just a person. She opened the door, surprise evident on her face. "Grant? I hope I'm not intruding," he said, holding up a wrapped box. "I realized I forgot something last night. You already gave us so much." "This isn't about giving more," Grant interrupted gently. "It's about, honestly, I didn't want to spend today alone either, and I kept thinking about you and Noah. So I thought maybe, if you're not busy, I could visit for a bit." Riley stepped aside, warmth flooding her chest. "We'd love that." Grant entered, and this time Riley noticed details she'd missed last night in her shock. The way he looked around the apartment, not with pity, but with something like respect. The careful way he moved in the small space, aware of his size. The genuine smile that crossed his face when he saw Noah on the blanket. "He's gotten bigger since last night," Grant joked, kneeling down. "Hey there, buddy. Remember me?" Noah stared at him for a long moment, then broke into a gummy smile and reached out his arms. Grant looked up at Riley, surprise in his eyes. "May I?" "Of course." Grant lifted Noah carefully, settling him against his chest. The baby immediately grabbed at his sweater, investigating the fabric with intense concentration. "He likes you," Riley said softly. "The feeling's mutual." Grant bounced Noah gently. "What's in the box, you ask? Well, let's see." He sat on the floor, this millionaire CEO, sitting cross-legged on the worn carpet of her studio apartment, and helped Noah tear the wrapping paper. Inside was a thick, incredibly soft winter coat. For Riley, her breath caught. "Grant, you all ready?" "I noticed your coat at the office," Grant said, not looking at her. "The broken zipper. And it's going to be a cold winter. You need something warmer." Riley took the coat with trembling hands. It was beautiful navy blue, insulated, with a hood and deep pockets. The kind of coat she'd looked at in store windows, but never imagined owning. "Try it on," Grant encouraged. She slipped it on. It fit perfectly, warm and substantial, like being wrapped in a hug. "How did you know my size?" Grant's ears turned slightly red. "I may have asked Beth from accounting. She's very observant about these things." Riley laughed, despite the tears forming. "You really planned this?" "I wanted to get it right." Grant looked at her seriously. "Riley, I know this is unusual. I know showing up at your apartment twice in 2 days probably seems strange. But the truth is, last night was the best Christmas Eve I've had in years. Being here, with you and Noah, actually celebrating, instead of just going through the motions. It meant something to me. It meant something to us too," Riley said quietly. "More than you know." They ordered pizza. Grant insisted on paying, and ate on the floor again while Noah played between them. The conversation flowed easier than it should have between a CEO and his assistant, between a millionaire and a single mother barely scraping by. Grant told her about building his company from nothing, about the failures and breakthroughs, about the loneliness that came with success. Riley shared pieces of her story. She rarely told anyone about her family's rejection, about Noah's father leaving, about the shame of asking for help, and the pride of surviving anyway. "You shouldn't feel ashamed," Grant said firmly. "Struggling doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. That's easy to say when you're not the one struggling." "You think I haven't struggled?" Grant set down his pizza. "Riley, I grew up in a neighborhood that makes this one look upscale. I wore the same 3 shirts for 2 years because they were all we could afford. I watched my mother cry herself to sleep more nights than I can count because she didn't know how she'd feed us." He paused, his jaw tight. "Success didn't erase that. It just gave me resources to make sure other people don't have to feel that way. That's why I'm here. Not because I pity you, but because I see you, and you deserve to be seen." Riley's vision blurred. "I felt invisible for so long. You're not invisible to me." The words hung between them, heavier than either expected. Noah chose that moment to crawl over to Grant and pull himself up using Grant's knee, standing wobbling for a few seconds before plopping down on his bottom. "Did you see that?" Grant said, his face lighting up. He stood up. "That's new," Riley said, delight mixing with the bittersweet ache of almost missing it. "He's been trying all week." They spent the next hour encouraging Noah to stand again, celebrating each attempt, laughing when he got distracted by his own feet. Grant was patient and gentle, his deep voice soothing when Noah got frustrated. Watching them together, Riley felt something shift in her chest, something dangerous and hopeful and terrifying. When Noah finally tired and fell asleep in Riley's arms, Grant helped her lay him on the mattress and cover him with the new blanket. "I should go," Grant said quietly, checking his watch. "It's getting late." Riley walked him to the door, reluctant for the evening to end. "Thank you, again, for everything." Grant hesitated, his hand on the doorframe. "Riley, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Would you be opposed to, I don't know, this not being a one-time thing? Me visiting, I mean. Checking in. Being part of—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "I don't have much family, no kids. Most of my relationships are professional or superficial. And last night, today, being here felt like the first real thing I've experienced in a long time." Riley's heart hammered. "You want to keep visiting? If that's okay with you. No pressure, no expectations. Just connection, friendship, whatever feels comfortable." "That would be okay," Riley said, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than okay." Grant's smile was genuine and slightly relieved. "Good, that's good." After he left, Riley stood in the doorway for a long moment, still wearing the new coat, feeling the warmth of it and the warmth of something else she was afraid to name. Her phone buzzed. Grant again. "Thank you for letting me be part of your Christmas. Sleep well." "Riley, thank you for choosing to be part of it." She added, "You're not alone anymore either." The next day was December 26th, and Riley had to return to work. The office was quiet, most people taking the week off, but Riley needed the hours. She dropped Noah at daycare and took the bus downtown, arriving at 7:15 as usual. Grant was already there, standing at her desk with 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning," he said, handing her one. "Thought you might need this." Riley accepted it gratefully, noticing it was made exactly how she liked it. "You remembered. I notice things." The morning passed, normally emails, scheduling, filing, but everything felt different. Grant emerged from his office several times with questions that felt like excuses to check on her. Each time, his eyes held something new: concern, interest, connection. At lunch, Beth appeared at Riley's desk with a knowing look. "So, the boss has been in a good mood." "Has he?" "Riley, honey, he's smiled more today than in the past 6 months combined. And he keeps looking over here." Beth leaned closer. "Something happen over the holiday?" Riley felt heat rise to her cheeks. He was kind, that's all." "Uh-huh." Beth didn't look convinced. "Well, whatever it is, it's good to see. He works too hard. Could use some happiness in his life." After Beth left, Riley tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting. To Grant sitting on her floor, to the way he'd held Noah, to the feeling of being seen after so long invisible. At 3 o'clock, Grant called her into his office. Riley entered cautiously, closing the door behind her. "Sit, please," Grant said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. She sat, nervous suddenly. Was he regretting Christmas, realizing he'd overstepped? "Riley, I want to talk to you about something," Grant began, his expression serious. "And I need you to hear me out before you respond." Her stomach dropped. "Okay. I've been thinking about your situation, about the fact that you're working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, struggling to afford basic necessities, and I want to offer you something." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "This is a new position, executive assistant. It comes with a substantial raise, more than double what you're making now, plus improved benefits, including better health insurance and childcare assistance." Riley stared at the folder, afraid to touch it. "Why would you offer me this?" "Because you're good at what you do. Because you're reliable, intelligent, and hard-working. Because you deserve the opportunity." He paused. "And because I'd like to help, Riley. Not as charity, but as recognition of your value. People will talk, Riley said quietly. They'll say you're showing favoritism, that I'm getting special treatment because... She couldn't finish the sentence. Because I spent Christmas with you? Grant said bluntly. Let them talk. I know my reasons, and you know yours. That's all that matters. Riley opened the folder with shaking hands. The salary number made her eyes widen. With this, she could afford a better apartment, could quit her cleaning job, could actually sleep. There's more, Grant said. The company has a scholarship program for employees pursuing higher education. You mentioned once that you wanted to finish college. If you're interested, I can expedite your application. Riley's throat closed. This is too much. It's what you deserve. But Riley, I need you to understand something. Grant leaned forward, his expression intense. This offer has nothing to do with Christmas. I'd been planning to promote you anyway. You're the best assistant I've ever had. The holiday just made me realize I should have done this months ago. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Take the folder home. Review everything. If you decide it's not right, that's fine. No hard feelings. But please, consider it. Riley clutched the folder to her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't accepted. But they both knew she would. How could she not? That evening, Riley sat on her floor with the folder spread out in front of her and Noah playing beside her. The numbers swam before her eyes. With this salary, she could afford the daycare's full-time program instead of the early drop-off, late pickup schedule that barely worked. She could buy Noah new clothes when he outgrew things instead of searching thrift stores. She could eat regular meals. She could breathe. Her phone rang. Grant's name on the screen. Hello? I'm sorry to call after hours, Grant said. I just wanted to make sure you knew no pressure on the job offer. Take your time deciding. I've already decided, Riley said. Yes, I accept. Thank you. A pause. Then, I'm glad, really glad. Grant, Riley said before she could stop herself. Why are you doing this? And please don't say it's just business. Another pause, longer this time. Because watching you struggle when I have the power to help feels wrong. Because you remind me of my mother, and I couldn't help her, but I can help you. And because... He stopped. Because I care about you, Riley. About you and Noah. As people, not just as my employee. And I don't want to watch you burn out when I can do something about it. Riley's eyes filled with tears. I care about you too. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with meaning neither was quite ready to examine. Get some rest, Grant said finally. We'll work out the details tomorrow. After they hung up, Riley held her phone for a long time, Grant's words echoing in her mind. I care about you. The next few weeks transformed Riley's life in ways she'd never imagined. The promotion went through on January 2nd. With the raise, Riley gave notice at her cleaning job. She found a new apartment still modest, but with a separate bedroom for Noah and a kitchen with a real stove. Grant helped her move, showing up on a Saturday morning in jeans and a t-shirt, ready to carry boxes. He assembled Noah's new crib, installed the safety gates, made sure everything was secure. You don't have to do this, Riley said, watching him work. I want to, Grant replied simply. He'd become a regular presence in their lives, stopping by with dinner once a week. Playing with Noah, while Riley studied, she'd enrolled in online classes, working toward her degree, fixing things in the apartment when they broke. It felt natural, easy, right. But Riley could feel the tension building, the way Grant's eyes lingered on her, the way her heart raced when he was near, the careful distance they both maintained, aware that crossing certain lines would complicate everything. 3 months after Christmas, Riley attended her first company event as executive assistant, a networking dinner at an upscale restaurant. She wore a dress she'd actually bought new, did her hair, felt almost like herself again instead of just a tired mother surviving. Grant's face when he saw her arrive told her everything. His eyes widened slightly, his expression shifting to something that looked like awe. You look beautiful, he said quietly, away from the other guests. Thank you. Riley felt heat rise to her cheeks. You clean up pretty nice yourself. Throughout the dinner, Riley was acutely aware of Grant beside her, the way he included her in conversations, The pride in his voice when he introduced her as his executive assistant, the casual touch of his hand on her elbow when guiding her through the crowd. Beth cornered her by the bar. "Honey, that man is smitten." "Beth." "Don't Beth me. I've worked here for 15 years. I've never seen Grant Weston look at anyone the way he looks at you." "It's complicated," Riley said. "The best things usually are." On the drive home, Grant had insisted on taking her, saying the cab fare was unnecessary. They sat in comfortable silence for several blocks. "You did great tonight," Grant said finally. "You're a natural at this." "I was terrified," Riley admitted. "All those people, all that money. I kept thinking someone would realize I didn't belong." "You belonged more than anyone there." Grant glanced at her, his expression serious. "Riley, can I tell you something?" "Always." "That night on Christmas Eve, when I knocked on your door, I told myself it was about kindness, about helping someone who needed it. And that was true, but it wasn't the whole truth." Riley's breath caught. "What was the whole truth?" "The whole truth is that I'd been thinking about you for months, about your smile even when things were hard, about the way you talked about Noah with so much love, about how you made my sterile office feel warmer just by being in it." He pulled up to a stoplight and turned to face her fully. "I told myself I was just being kind, but somewhere along the way, it became more than that." "Grant, I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted. "I know the position I'm in. Your boss, someone with more resources, someone who could easily take advantage. I would never do that. But I needed you to know. I care about you, Riley. More than I should, probably. More than is professionally appropriate." Riley's heart hammered. "What if I care about you too?" The light turned green, but Grant didn't move until the car behind them honked. He drove the rest of the way to her apartment in charged silence. At her door, he walked her up even though she said he didn't have to. "Thank you for tonight," Riley said. "For everything. For the job, for the help, for being in our lives." "Riley," she stepped closer, her courage surprising her. "I do care about you. I've been trying not to because it's complicated and scary and could go wrong in so many ways. But I can't help it. You've changed our lives, yes, but you've also changed me. Made me remember who I was before survival mode. Made me feel seen in a way I never have before." Grant's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "We should be careful. I know. People will talk. I know. Your job could be affected. I know." Riley covered his hand with hers. "But I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of playing it safe. You took a risk on Christmas Eve. You knocked on my door when you could have stayed in your safe, comfortable world. Maybe it's my turn to take a risk." Grant's eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He kissed her, then gentle, tentative, asking permission with every movement. Riley kissed him back, feeling months of tension and longing release all at once. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "This changes things," Grant said. "I hope so," Riley replied. Inside her apartment, the babysitter was reading on the couch. Riley paid her and checked on Noah, who slept peacefully in his new crib in his new room. She stood in the doorway, watching him breathe, thinking about how far they'd come, from a floor mattress in a studio to a real bed in a real bedroom, from formula she could barely afford to a full pantry, from invisible to seen. Her phone buzzed. "Grant, I meant what I said, about caring, about all of it." "Riley, so did I." "Grant, this is going to be complicated." "Riley, the best things usually are." She smiled, remembering Beth's words, and added, "Besides, we've already done the hard part. Everything else is just details." "Grant, what was the hard part?" "Riley, admitting we're not alone anymore." That night, Riley fell asleep thinking about the future for the first time in years, not with fear or anxiety, but with hope. Because somewhere between Christmas Eve and now, between the knock on her door and the kiss outside it, her life had transformed. Not just because of money or opportunity, though those things mattered, but because someone had chosen to see her, to stay, to care, and she'd chosen to let him. The kiss changed everything, and nothing at the same time. At work, Riley and Grant maintained careful professionalism. She called him Mr. Weston in meetings. He treated her the same as any executive assistant. But there were moments, fleeting glances across the conference room, his hand brushing hers when passing documents, the slight smile he couldn't quite hide when she walked into his office that told a different story. Outside the office, though, the boundaries dissolved. Grant came for dinner twice a week, bringing groceries and helping Riley cook, while Noah played at their feet. He read bedtime stories in funny voices that made the baby giggle. He stayed late talking with Riley about everything and nothing, childhood memories, dreams for the future, the small observations that make up a life. They didn't rush into anything physical beyond kissing. Both seemed to understand that what they were building needed a foundation stronger than attraction. They were constructing something that had to hold the weight of a child, 2 careers, and the scrutiny that would inevitably come. 6 weeks after that first kiss, on a Saturday afternoon in late February, Grant took Riley and Noah to the Children's Museum. It was Noah's first real outing beyond the park, and watching him toddle through the exhibits, touching everything, laughing at the water table, falling asleep in Grant's arms by the end, filled Riley with a joy so complete it almost hurt. "You're good with him," Riley said as they walked to Grant's car, Noah drooling slightly on Grant's shoulder. "He makes it easy." Grant adjusted his hold on the sleeping toddler, his expression tender. "He's an amazing kid, Riley. You've done an incredible job. We've been doing it together lately," Riley said softly. "You realize that, don't you? For the past 2 months, you've been more present in his life than his actual father ever was." Grant stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "Is that okay? I don't want to overstep. I know I'm not his father." "You're more than his father," Riley said, emotion thick in her voice. "You're someone who chose to be here, who shows up, who loves him not because you have to, but because you want to. That matters more than biology." Grant's eyes shone. "I do love him. I love both of you." The words hung in the cold air between them, enormous and undeniable. Riley's breath caught. "Grant, I know it's fast," he continued, his voice urgent now. "I know we've only been actually together for 6 weeks, but Riley, I've been falling for you since long before Christmas. And Noah," he looked down at the sleeping child in his arms, "this little guy has my whole heart. Both of you do." Riley felt tears spill over. "I love you too. I've been trying not to say it because it seemed too soon, too intense, too much, but I can't help it. You've given us everything, not just money or opportunities, but safety, hope, a future. How could I not love you?" They kissed there in the parking lot, careful not to wake Noah, the February wind cold around them, but neither one caring. That evening, after Noah was in bed, they sat together on Riley's couch, the new one Grant had helped her pick out, and talked about what came next. "I want this to work," Grant said, his arm around Riley's shoulders, "but I'm worried about the complications." "What complications?" "Work, for one. You're my executive assistant. People already whisper. If this becomes public, it'll get worse. They'll say you slept your way into the position, that I'm taking advantage, that it's inappropriate." Riley stiffened. "Do you think it's inappropriate?" "No, but I care what they say about you. I don't want your reputation damaged because of me." "My reputation?" Riley pulled back to look at him. "Grant, 6 months ago I was sleeping on the floor with my baby, eating crackers for lunch, wearing shoes held together with glue. Now I have an apartment, a career, stability. If people want to whisper, let them. I know the truth, which is that you saw me when I was invisible, that you helped me, not because you wanted something in return, but because you're good. And yes, we fell in love. But that doesn't invalidate everything else. I earned my position. I work hard. I'm good at what I do." Grant cupped her face. "You're extraordinary at what you do. Then that's all that matters." Riley leaned into his touch. "But if you're worried about the professional complications, there might be a solution." "What solution?" "I could transfer to a different department, work for someone else. That way there's no direct boss-employee relationship." Grant was quiet for a moment. "Would you want that?" "I want you," Riley said simply, "however that looks. If it means changing jobs to make this easier, I'll do it." "Let me think about it," Grant said. "There might be other options." Over the next few weeks, whispers did start circulating through the office. Riley heard them in the break room, caught the sideways glances from colleagues. Beth confronted her directly one afternoon. "Are you and Grant together?" she asked, closing Riley's office door. Riley hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "Oh, honey." Beth sat down heavily. "You know what people are saying?" "I can imagine. That you're using him, that he's taking advantage, that the promotion was payment for." She trailed off delicately. Riley's jaw tightened. "None of that is true. I know that. I've watched you work. You're brilliant at this job. But Riley, perception matters. And right now, the perception is problematic. So what do I do? Break up with him to make other people comfortable? No, but maybe be prepared for consequences." The consequences came 2 days later, in the form of an email from HR requesting a meeting with both Riley and Grant. They sat across from Margaret Chen, the head of human resources, in her sterile office on the 14th floor. "We need to discuss your relationship," Margaret said without preamble. "Multiple employees have expressed concerns about the appropriateness of a romantic involvement between a supervisor and subordinate." "I'm aware of the concerns," Grant said, his voice cool and professional, "which is why I've already made arrangements." Riley looked at him in surprise. Grant continued, "Effective next week, I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations of Western Technologies. I'll retain my position as founder and chairman of the board, but James Martinez will assume the role of CEO. This removes the direct supervisory relationship between Riley and myself." Margaret's eyebrows rose. "That's quite a significant change, Mr. Weston." "It's the right change. I've been considering it for months. The company has grown beyond what I can effectively manage alone. James is more than qualified, and personally, it allows me to focus on other priorities." "Such as?" Grant's eyes flicked to Riley. "Such as the foundation I'm starting, for single parents who need support, childcare assistance, job placement, housing help. I'll be devoting most of my time to that." Riley's breath caught. He hadn't mentioned any of this. Margaret made notes on her tablet. "And Miss James? How do you feel about this arrangement?" "I feel," Riley said carefully, "that Grant Mr. Weston is making a decision that benefits the company and removes any ethical concerns about our relationship. I'll continue in my current role, reporting to Mr. Martinez instead. My work speaks for itself." "Indeed it does." Margaret's expression softened slightly. "I've reviewed your performance reports, Miss James. You're one of our strongest employees. I just want to ensure that this situation doesn't create problems for anyone involved." "It won't," Grant said firmly. "I'm making these changes because I believe in doing things properly. Riley deserves to build her career without anyone questioning her qualifications, and honestly, I'm ready for a new challenge." After the meeting, Riley followed Grant to his office and closed the door. "You're stepping down," she said. "Grant, you built this company. It's your life's work." "It was my life's work," Grant corrected, past tense. "Riley, I've spent 15 years building Western Technologies, and I'm proud of it. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what I was building it for. Success for the sake of success. Money for the sake of money. It all felt hollow." He moved closer to her. "Then I met you, and Noah, and suddenly I remembered what actually matters. Connection, purpose, building something that helps people, not just generates profit. But a foundation, that's enormous. That's starting over." "I know," Grant smiled, "and I'm excited about it. I've already been working with lawyers to set it up. It's called the Second Chance Initiative. We'll help single parents get back on their feet, not just with money, but with resources, support, community. Everything my mother needed and never got. Everything you needed before I showed up at your door." Riley's eyes filled with tears. "You're doing this because of us. I'm doing this because of what you taught me. That real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in lives changed, in people seen, in hope restored." He took her hands. "You changed my life, Riley. Let me use that change to help others." "I love you," Riley whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes. I love you too, and I know it's scary, but we'll figure it out together." The transition happened quickly. James Martinez, Grant's longtime VP of Operations, stepped into the CEO role seamlessly. Grant moved to a smaller office on the 10th floor to work on the foundation. Riley remained as executive assistant, now reporting to James, who treated her with the same respect Grant always had. The whispers didn't stop immediately, but they lost their edge. Riley proved herself repeatedly, organizing a flawless product launch, negotiating a difficult client contract, streamlining processes that saved the company money. Her competence became undeniable, and outside work, her relationship with Grant deepened in ways that felt both natural and profound. They celebrated Noah's first birthday in April with a small party at Riley's apartment. Grant invited his elderly aunt, the only family he had left, who immediately adored both Riley and Noah. Riley invited Beth and a few colleagues who'd become genuine friends. They ate cake, opened presents, and watched Noah smash his face into a cupcake with gleeful abandon. "He's going to remember this," Grant said softly, watching Noah laugh at his own messy face. "He's going to remember you," Riley corrected, "being here, making his childhood full of love." That night, after everyone left and Noah was asleep, Grant stayed to help clean up. But when everything was done, he didn't leave. He sat on the couch, looking suddenly nervous. "Riley, can we talk?" She sat beside him, concern flickering. "Of course. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. He took a breath. "We've been together for 4 months now, and it's been the best 4 months of my life. But I think we need to talk about the future." Riley's heart rate picked up. "Okay, I love you. I love Noah. I want to be part of your lives permanently, not just as a boyfriend who visits, but as something more." He turned to face her fully. "I want us to live together, build a real family. I know it's fast, but Riley, I've never been more sure of anything." Riley felt joy and terror in equal measure. "You want us to move in with you. I want us to find a place together, something that's ours, not mine or yours. A home where Noah can grow up with a yard and stability and 2 parents who love him." "2 parents," Riley repeated. "Grant, you know you're not his biological father." "I know, but I want to be his father in every way that matters. If he'll let me, when he's old enough to understand." Riley was crying now, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he was offering. "Are you sure? Taking on someone else's child is—" "Riley," Grant wiped her tears gently. "There's no someone else's child. There's just Noah. The little boy I've watched learn to walk and babble and laugh. The kid who reaches for me when I walk in the door. The baby I read to every night and rock to sleep when he's fussy. He's already mine in every way that matters. I just want to make it official." "Yes," Riley whispered. "Yes to all of it." They found a house in May, a modest 3-bedroom, in a good neighborhood with a fenced backyard and excellent schools. Not a mansion, despite Grant's resources. Something comfortable and warm, where a family could actually live. Grant insisted Riley contribute what she could to the down payment, respecting her need to not feel like everything was handed to her. They painted Noah's room together, assembled furniture side by side, planted flowers in the garden. Moving day was chaotic and perfect. Noah toddled through the empty rooms, his excited shrieks echoing. Grant's aunt came over with casseroles. Beth arrived with wine and congratulations. That first night in their new home, after Noah was asleep in his new room, Riley and Grant stood in their bedroom, their shared bedroom, and looked at each other with a mixture of disbelief and joy. "We did it," Riley said. "We actually built this." "We're still building it," Grant corrected. "This is just the beginning." They made love that night for the first time, slow and tender and full of emotion. Afterward, lying tangled together, Riley felt a peace she'd never experienced before. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong," she admitted quietly, "for this to be too good to be true." "Life isn't perfect," Grant said. "We'll have hard days, arguments, stress, all the normal relationship stuff. But Riley, we've already survived the hard part. Everything else is just navigating together." "What was the hard part?" "Being brave enough to let someone in. You did that when you opened your door on Christmas Eve. I did that when I knocked. Everything after is just choosing to keep showing up." The foundation launched in June with a gala fundraiser that raised over $2 million. Riley helped plan it, using skills she'd developed at Western Technologies. She watched Grant give a speech about his mother, about the single parents who worked themselves to exhaustion. about the mission to provide real support and second chances. The room gave him a standing ovation. Afterward, several journalists wanted to interview the mysterious woman who'd inspired the foundation. Riley declined politely. This wasn't about her story. It was about all the stories, all the struggling parents who needed help and hope. But Grant pulled her aside before they left. "You know you inspired all of this, right? Not just the foundation, but everything. You reminded me what matters, what real success looks like." "Success looks like us going home to our son," Riley said, smiling. "So let's go." Summer passed in a blur of domestic happiness. Weekend trips to the beach where Noah discovered sand, backyard barbecues with friends, quiet evenings after bedtime where Riley studied for her classes and Grant worked on foundation plans. Beth visited often, becoming like family. Grant's aunt babysat when Riley and Grant needed date nights. They built a community, a support system, the kind of network Riley had been missing for years. In August, on a Saturday afternoon while Noah napped, Grant found Riley in the garden pulling weeds. "Can I ask you something?" he said, kneeling beside her. "Always. Do you ever regret it? Choosing me, I mean. Taking on all the complications that came with being with your former boss, the whispers, the judgment." Riley sat back on her heels, looking at him seriously. "Grant, before you, I was drowning, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, watching my son grow up in shifts between my exhaustion. I had no family, no support, no hope that things would ever change." She took his hand. "You didn't just give me money or a job or a house. You gave me my life back. You reminded me I was a person, not just a struggling single mother. You saw me when I'd become invisible even to myself. So no, I don't regret it. Not for 1 second. Even when people judged you, people will always judge, but their judgment doesn't feed my son or keep him safe or make him laugh. You do that. We do that together. That's all that matters." Grant pulled a small box from his pocket. Riley's breath stopped. "I was planning to do this at a fancy restaurant," Grant said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "But here, in our garden, with our son sleeping inside and dirt under your nails, feels more real, more us." "Grant." "Riley James, you changed my life the moment I saw you. You taught me what real strength looks like, what love looks like, what matters. I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. Will you marry me?" Riley was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her there in the garden, both of them crying, both of them exactly where they belonged. That evening, they celebrated with Noah, who had no idea why his parents were so happy but joined in anyway, clapping his hands and squealing. They called Grant's aunt, who cried with joy. They told Beth, who'd suspected for weeks. They posted nothing on social media, preferring to keep the moment private and sacred. Later, after Noah was in bed, they sat on their back porch watching the sun set. "When should we do it?" Riley asked, admiring her ring. "Get married, I mean. Whenever you want. Tomorrow. Next year. I don't care about the timeline. I just care about the commitment." "I want Noah to be part of it," Riley said. "Old enough to understand that we're becoming a real family." "We're already a real family," Grant said. "The wedding just makes it official." "Speaking of official," Riley said carefully, "have you thought about adoption? Legally becoming Noah's father?" Grant turned to her, his expression intense. "I've thought about it every day, but I wanted you to bring it up. Didn't want to push." "I want it," Riley said. "I want Noah to have your name. I want it legal and permanent and real. You're his father, Grant, in every way that matters. Then let's do it. Let's make it official." They got married in September, exactly 9 months after that Christmas Eve knock. Small ceremony in their backyard, just close friends and family. Noah, now 18 months old, toddled down the aisle as ring bearer, getting distracted halfway and needing Grant to come get him. Everyone laughed. It was perfect. Riley wore a simple white dress. Grant wore a suit. Beth was maid of honor. Grant's aunt officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. When it came time for vows, Grant spoke first. "Riley, On Christmas Eve last year, I told myself I was just being kind, just helping someone who needed it. But the truth is, you saved me just as much as I saved you. You reminded me what matters, what real wealth looks like. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to be better. And Noah, his voice broke. Noah gave me the chance to be a father, to love someone completely and unconditionally. You've both given me everything. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. Riley's vows were simpler. Grant, you saw me when I was invisible. You stayed when you could have walked away. You chose us. Every day, you choose us, and I choose you. I choose this life we're building. I choose forever with you. They kissed as husband and wife while Noah clapped and shouted, "Dada, Mama," and everyone cried happy tears. The adoption process started the following week. Grant's lawyers filed the paperwork. Noah's biological father had to be notified, a legal requirement, but he didn't contest. He'd made his choice years ago. Now Grant was making his. 3 months later, in December, they stood in family court as a judge granted the adoption. "Mr. Weston," the judge said, "do you understand that by adopting Noah James, you're accepting full legal and financial responsibility for him as if he were your biological child?" "I do, Your Honor," Grant said firmly. "And do you promise to love, protect, and provide for him for the rest of his life?" "I do. I already have been. This just makes it official," the judge smiled. "Then, by the power vested in me by the state, I declare this adoption final. Congratulations. You're officially a family." Noah, sitting on Riley's lap, chose that moment to reach for Grant, saying, "Dada," clear as day. Grant took him, holding him close, tears streaming down his face. "That's right, buddy. I'm your Dada. Forever." Riley stood and wrapped her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the courtroom, the three of them, officially and legally a family. That night, they celebrated quietly at home. Noah played with his toys, oblivious to the magnitude of what had happened, but Grant and Riley understood. This was everything. This was what mattered. "Thank you," Grant said as they sat on the couch after bedtime, Noah's adoption certificate framed on the wall. "For what?" "For letting me be his father, for building this with me, for taking a chance on a man who showed up at your door on Christmas Eve with a basket." Riley smiled. "Thank you for knocking, for seeing us, for staying." Christmas Eve came 1 year after the night that changed everything. Riley and Grant stood in their kitchen preparing dinner, while Noah, now almost 2, talking more every day, played in the living room. "1 year," Riley said, stirring cranberry sauce. "Can you believe it's been a year? Feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time," Grant replied, checking the turkey. They decided to recreate that first meal. Same menu, same setup, but in their own home with their own family. Grant's aunt was coming over, so was Beth and her husband. The foundation's first beneficiaries, 3 families they'd helped get back on their feet, were joining them too. The doorbell rang, and Noah shouted, "Door, door," from his play area. Grant answered it to find Gloria, the single mother Riley had met at the shelter last year, standing there with her 2 kids. She looked completely different, confident, stable, thriving. "Thank you for inviting us," Gloria said, hugging both Grant and Riley. "My kids have been so excited." "We're glad you could come," Riley said warmly. "You're family now." Throughout the evening, as their home filled with laughter and conversation and the warmth of chosen family, Riley found herself standing in the doorway watching it all. Grant came up beside her, sliding his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the woman I was a year ago, alone in that studio apartment, hanging dollar store lights, wondering if I'd ever feel anything but tired. And now look at this." She gestured to the room full of people, the beautiful home, their son playing happily. "It doesn't feel real sometimes." "It's real," Grant assured her. "We built this. Together." "I keep those lights, you know," Riley said. "The ones from the dollar store. They're in Noah's closet. Sometimes I take them out and remember where we started." "Why?" "So I never forget what matters. So I never take this for granted. And so someday, when Noah's older, I can show him that beautiful things can grow from the hardest moments. That being seen when you feel invisible can change everything." Grant kissed her temple. You're the wisest person I know. I'm just someone who got lucky. Someone showed up when I needed them most." "We both got lucky," Grant corrected. "I needed you just as much as you needed me. I just didn't know it until I knocked on your door." Later, after everyone had left and Noah was asleep, Riley and Grant sat together on their back porch, wrapped in a blanket, looking at the stars. "The foundation helped 23 families this year," Grant said. 23 families who might have been where you were, alone, struggling, invisible. "Because one person chose to see me," Riley said. "And that choice rippled out. That's how change happens, isn't it? One person at a time. One act of kindness at a time," Grant agreed. "One knock on a door, one choice to show up instead of looking away." Riley's phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Is this Riley Weston? I was given your number by the Second Chance Initiative. I'm a single mom struggling to make ends meet. And they said, you might understand. Could I talk to you?" Riley showed Grant the text. "Look at this. What are you going to say?" Riley typed back, "I understand more than you know. What do you need?" As they waited for the response, Riley leaned against Grant's shoulder. "We should invite her for coffee, hear her story, connect her with resources." "We should," Grant agreed. "We should see her, the way I saw you." "The way you'll always see me," Riley corrected. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. Two people who'd taken a chance on love when it was complicated and risky. Two people who'd built a family not from blood or obligation, but from choice and commitment and the simple act of showing up. Inside, Noah slept peacefully in his room, surrounded by love and security. Outside, the December stars shone bright and cold. And on the porch, Riley and Grant held each other, grateful for the knock on the door that had changed everything. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person seeing you when you feel invisible. One person choosing to care when they could walk away. One person knocking on your door on Christmas Eve with a basket full of hope. And sometimes, that one moment of kindness creates ripples that spread outward, changing lives, building families, and reminding everyone involved that we're all just one act of grace away from transformation. Riley looked at her husband, at the life they'd built, at the future stretching before them full of possibility. "Merry Christmas," she whispered. "Merry Christmas," Grant replied. "To many more together." And they meant it, every single one. And that's how a single knock on Christmas Eve changed two lives forever. Not through grand gestures or dramatic interventions, but through simple kindness, genuine connection, and the choice to see someone when they felt invisible. If this story touched your heart, here's what I want you to do. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for yourself and for the world we're building together. Tomorrow, look for someone who's invisible, someone struggling, someone who needs to be seen, and see them. Help if you can with time, with kindness, with acknowledgement of their humanity. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of human connection. Drop a comment telling me about a time someone saw you when you felt invisible, or a time you showed up for someone else. Your story matters. You matter. And remember, you don't need millions of dollars to change a life. Sometimes all it takes is noticing. Sometimes all it takes is caring enough to knock on the door. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that kindness matters. And thank you for being the kind of person who stops instead of walking past. Until next time, keep seeing each other, keep showing up, keep building the world we all deserve to live in, one small act of grace at a time.